McLaren Racing was founded by Formula One driver Bruce McLaren in 1963. After first entering Formula One in 1966, the England-based team achieved a first Grand Prix win in 1968 and took the Constructors Championship's title in 1974. Over the years, McLaren's drivers have included legends of the sport, including Niki Lauda, Ayrton Senna, Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton, who won the Drivers' Championship in 2008. But following that win, the team failed to take a championship title, and in the latter part of the 2010s were often at the wrong end of the table. In recent years, however, the team's fortunes have reversed under the leadership of Zak Brown, who took the CEO position at McLaren Racing in 2018. After climbing the leaderboards over the past few years, in 2024, McLaren's senior driver Lando Norris achieved the first Grand Prix wins of his career, leading him to second place in the Drivers' Championships after a narrow victory at the final race of the season in Abu Dhabi. His win secured the Constructors' Championship title for the team. As media partner of McLaren Racing, we welcomed Lando and Zak to the CNBC sanctuary in Davos, Switzerland. I've got to ask you, okay, your feelings. You won the Constructors' Championship for the first time in 26 years. First of all, huge congratulations.
Thank you.
I think that's a big round of applause. Zak, you said in Abu Dhabi it was the worst 2 hours of your life.
It certainly was. Followed by a great 24.
Of course. Just talk us through those 2 hours.
Lando had to drive perfectly, which he did. We were in an epic battle with Ferrari. Things were looking pretty good on Saturday. Lando put it on pole. Oscar was second. Charles Leclerc and the Ferrari had a technical issue on Friday, so he was starting at the back. So that was kind of the perfect setup for Sunday. And then 2 seconds into the race, turn one, Max makes a bit of a lunge on Oscar. They touch. Now Oscar's at the back of the pack. And Charles has a remarkable first lap and makes up about 10 positions. And it's game on. And we ended up getting into a situation where Lando had to win because Ferrari got up to second and third. And we were probably 7/10 away from being at high risk because Carlos and the second Ferrari was doing a very good job hanging on to Lando, was never more than 2 seconds behind. So to kind of go through 24 races and spend hundreds of millions of dollars and everyone giving it their best effort, to have your championship come down to effectively one pit stop in 7/10 of a second was pretty brutal on pit wall for 2 hours. But we did it.
Lando, knowing all of this going on, how do you stay calm? What's going through your mind at this time?
I didn't know all of this, which was probably the best part of it all.
Yeah.
I knew we had to beat Ferrari somehow, but I didn't know the exact numbers, which is not my job. My job that day was to go out and win and do the best I could. Once I knew Ferrari was second and third, I knew I had to stay out there and score as many points as possible. So, it's stressful for me, but I have the adrenaline, I have a lot of things going on, so I can concentrate. But I remember going down some of the straights, and there we have the big TVs that for all the spectators and the fans watching. And I remember going down and watching them, and I'd always see Zak on it, stressing and looking pretty nervous. So I could tell a lot was on the line, and it's hard to think about all of these things during it because you're so focused.
When you realised you'd got it, and that split second, Zak, and what were your first feelings?
The pressure was immense. I think many people have said this is the biggest turnaround in the history of Formula One. If you think about Lando's first win in Miami, 12 months earlier in Miami, we were the slowest team. So to have that type of turnaround was awesome. It was much more fun being the hunter, and then we were the hunted the second half of the season. So you do get into a bit of you'd be ashamed to have gone through all this, lead the championship, and then lose it at the last race. And so I'm as motivated by the fear of defeat as I am the motivated by the thrill of victory.
Lando, of course, Zak's talked about the incredible win you had in Miami. What was that like for you? Talk us through that.
It was incredible. I mean, this is what I dreamed of since I was a kid, right? So my flashback was back to when I was a kid. So when I was 7, 8 years old, I remember watching Fernando and Lewis. They were part of McLaren. Quite a spectacular year. And that was my first time watching Formula One. And I remember watching McLaren, watching Lewis as the Brit, and cheering them on and thinking, this is what I want to do one day. Fast forward, and I was standing there and had the whole of McLaren down below. Andrea was up on the podium with me, and it was just like that moment of, wow, I've achieved what I dreamt of, what always seemed so distant, what always seemed so far away. I was living that moment. So it was incredible. And it was a great race. But just being there, being on that podium, and just feeling like, wow, I've accomplished something that I've always dreamed of was truly special. So again, as much as the Constructors Championship was a memory for me, achieving a race win, my first race win in Formula One was something very special, and also something I'll remember for a long time.
A Grand Prix can last up to 2 hours, so drivers like Lando need to be both physically and mentally prepared.
I have my own way of doing things. Oscar, my teammate's going to have his own way of doing things. Before I go out, for me, the more relaxed I can be, the better. As soon as I try and create that situation where I'm tense, I'm like, okay, something big's about to happen, I need to do this. Like, that's when I just don't perform to the level that I need to. And maybe that works differently for other people, and other people, they go and have a kick with a football, or they go do some boxing and they get hyped up. The great thing is when you see, like on the Netflix, sometimes you see their warm-ups all cool, and it's like they're getting sweaty, and I'm just lying there having a little nap.
I can't believe that, Lando. What, you can have a nap before?
I'll have a nap. Yeah, it's like the lower my heart rate, the better I'm going to do. Because when I get in the car, as soon as the helmet goes on, you're in your own world. It's me, it's my car. As soon as that goes on, you're in your own little world, and everything's disappeared, and it's just you have to focus on what's ahead of you. I'm still nervous, I'm still crazy nervous before races and anxious and all of these things. And I'm an overthinker, so I think of a lot of stuff. So the more I can almost calm myself down and just think, okay, all I got to focus on is the start. Then after the start, the rest will happen. But I'll react in the time rather than trying to overthink of every situation possible. So finding out what works for you as an individual, I think, is one of the most important things.
After showing promise in motorsports from a young age, Lando joined Formula 2 racing, where he achieved great success, coming second in the 2018 Drivers' Championships before joining McLaren's Formula 1 team the following year. After 5 years in Formula 1, the 2024 season was his most successful yet. After winning his first ever Grand Prix in Miami, Lando went on to win 3 more times, taking second place in the Drivers' Championship. Tell us about the very young Lando, and what did it take to get to where you are?
I started karting when I was 7, 8 years old. Growing up, my hero was Valentino Rossi. He was a motorbike rider, and that's where my love and my passion was initially, but that slowly transitioned to 4 wheels. And it was more like when I started, it was just what I love to do. It's a tricky sport to get into, but it takes time, and it's a long journey, from when I was 7, 8 years old to signing for McLaren when I was 18. 10 years of my life trying to get to that point. But I was also a guy who, I never believed in myself that much. But then you get there, you experience it, and then I'm like, oh, actually, I can do it. And every step of the way, that was always my thought process. And even up to Formula 1, it's Formula 2 before that, and you're thinking, well, how am I going to get there? The F1 stars, they're incredible. These are the guys, 20 of the best drivers in the world. That's it. And is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? And then all of a sudden, you sign the contract, the talks, the negotiations with Zak, and then you're there, and then you're like, wow, I've made it. But then there's a whole other story. You got to stay there, and 1 year is not good enough. You have to impress every single year. And it's a tough sport to stay in for multiple years. A lot of people have proved that too. So it's been incredible. It's been a long journey, and hopefully it's going to continue for much longer too.
Absolutely. I mean, Zak, one of the most extraordinary turnarounds in Formula One history, what your team did. How did you accomplish that?
We're obviously in the technology business.
Yes.
We need to have the greatest technology in our sport. It's definitely the most technically most sophisticated sport in the world. But it's about people. It's about culture. I think you see in great sports teams, we've all seen, and pick a sport where you get all the all-stars on the team and it doesn't quite work because the culture doesn't come together. And then we've also seen teams in sports where they don't have a lot of superstars, but they all come together and they overachieve. I'd like to think we're a blend of the two, you know, some very well-known individuals in our sport, some famous engineers, designers, team principal, and then some awesome people in our racing team. We have about 1,000 people in Formula One, and I think the turnaround to kind of tell the story, we changed when we hit our dip. Our team principal, our technical director, our head of aero, which are your three most senior positions. The other 997 people were kind of the same people that gave us the car at the start of the year in 2023. That was terrible. It's the same people with different leadership that gave us the car we just won the world championship in. And I think what those leaders did is they gave direction, motivation, built trust, transparency, and in Formula One, 2% separates the entire grid. So there's probably not a closer industry out there between the best to the worst. So you live in a mindset of very small incremental gains. I got to do better today than I did yesterday. You're constantly making mistakes, some big, some small. You're chasing perfection, but there is no such thing as perfection, because even if, you know, Lando does the perfect lap, there'll be something in the data that he'll go, I could have done that incrementally a little better. And that's what keeps us all motivated. Strategy. We made some strategy mistakes last year. I think we cost Lando the win in Silverstone, but we're a smarter team because of that. So as long as you're learning by your mistakes and you're not afraid to make mistakes, then you're constantly on this journey of learning and self-improvement. And if you can get 1,000 people all rowing the same way with that same mindset of, I'm not as scared to make a mistake. I know my teammates have me. I know what my boss wants me to do. And then obviously to put a fast race car on the track, you need to not only have a great technical team, but you have to have an awesome finance department, because we live in a cost cap world now. So we have to spend our money very efficiently.
Lando, Zak talked about the mistake that cost you Silverstone. What happens when you disagree with some of the choices that are made? I'm just thinking back to the Hungarian Grand Prix when you were asked to let your teammate Oscar Piastri take the victory. Quite tense on the radio.
Oscar deserved the victory from the beginning. A lot of people get confused with it when they just hear radio or hear snippets of things. I think we live in a world where if you just see snippets of things, you can get very easily misled. And you've always got to understand the bigger picture of what happened, what was said before. And truly only we know that as a team. People can always speculate and say what they want, but we're two very competitive drivers who both want to win. And I'm my own individual, so I'm going out there to race for myself, and I want to prove that I'm the best. But at the same time, Oscar wants to prove that he's the best. And even though we've had that, you're going to have those little moments where things get a bit tougher. But when you look at the bigger picture of the whole season, we were by far the best team who worked together in the most efficient way, who collaborated in the best way, who worked together. Oscar and I get along. We both know we want to beat each other and we want to prove who's better, but we also know what our goal is at the end of the day, and that is to win a championship, a drivers' championship, constructors. And as long as we're all on the same page between our bosses or my bosses and myself, my engineers, then we can execute things well. But as soon as you try to hide things and you try and be a bit secretive, I think that's where the team starts to fall apart and you have plenty of problems like we see in many other teams on the grid. So as much as there's that one point you touched on, the bigger picture is that we're probably the best performing team in terms of maximizing how we both work together as drivers.
Norris trumps Verstappen!
Netflix series Drive to Survive follows the ups and downs of life in the world of Formula One, on and off the track. It's been credited with boosting the sport's popularity and propelling its stars like Lando further into the public eye.
Netflix are very good at always hiding and being in places, and sometimes you don't realize until after. I think the whole part of Netflix has been great for everyone. I think it's been great for the sport of Formula One. It's been great for the people watching, our fans, our spectators, to see more of us, to see more of like the athletes inside the team, how it works, because Formula One's always been a very closed-off sport where very hard to access, always looks very distant. And I think that now people see us more as people and our personalities and things, the better, because they can relate, and you always can enjoy things more, I would say, when you can relate to things, you relate to people, you relate to things that happen in sports because you felt similar ways or you've done similar things. So I think that's been a good thing. And the other thing, the contrary side of it is you have a lot of stuff said about you and things that are said that are not true, or they take out parts of your interviews or one thing that you said, and like we said earlier, don't include the whole picture of things. So then people speculate and come up with stories. And I've not always been the best, like I can happily admit that. I grew up on social media, so I've always been one to read my comments and read all of these things. And at times affected me a lot, especially in my younger days. There's definitely been lines crossed at times with people just coming up with such false statements. That creates a picture and a narrative of you. And I think that's the only thing I dislike at times is when, it can be quite a big brand or a company that come out with such a thing that is false and really leads people to, or leads a narrative about you. So it's a tough world with all of the media and all these types of things. But you're always going to have people who criticize you, who are there to be against you. And you've got to somehow turn that into a positive. You've got to turn that into all right, how can I go out and prove them wrong?
We were talking about the growth of Formula One, Zak, especially in the US at the moment. New investors, new partners. What has it meant for McLaren?
Well, so when Liberty acquired the sport, they saw this massive annual global sport where I don't think we were very good at focusing on the fan. And that's where, the whole ecosystem starts. For us, we want to be a very inclusive team, a very warm team. That's why we went back to our iconic papaya colors. That's what our fans were telling us that they wanted to see. And I want to be the fans' favorite. And we are at the moment. We need to stay there by welcoming people, having great drivers that are very warm, letting people see inside our sport. I think Netflix has done wonderful things. There were kind of three demographics, psychographics, geographies that we needed to tackle as a sport, which we've done, which was North America. We weren't really anywhere on the radar 5 years ago. Now, if you look at half of our corporate partners are American entities that have never been in the sport before, the Googles, the Dells, the Ciscos of the world, and I don't think they would have been here 10 years ago. Women and youth. And then diversity in general around the world.